Tracking on India Upfront, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in France on a two-day visit. As he arrived in Paris, he was given a red carpet welcome by both the Indian diaspora as well as the French Prime Minister. In a special gesture, the French Prime Minister received PM Modi at the airport and accorded him a ceremonial welcome. During negotiations lined up next, India and France are expected to make big-ticket announcements on the two mega procurement projects, expected to cost between 80,000 to 85,000 crore rupees. The Defence Acquisition Council today approved proposals for the purchase of 26 Rafale jets and 3 Scorpene-class submarines. But while the two countries sealed the key deals, it is the soft power in the form of diaspora support that was also on ample display.
I was very excited. बहुत अच्छा लगा मोदी जी को इतने पास से देखने का. Thank you so much.
Dedicated to प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी. प्रतिपल जीवन नव कोणों में विकसित होता जाए. धन्य विश्व विद्यालय भारत स्वर्ग धरा पर लाए. मोदी है तो मुमकिन है.
बहुत अच्छा लगा उनको पहले सामने देख करके कि विश्वास ही नहीं हो रहा था कि असली में उनको देख रहे हैं कि लाइक ऐसा लग रहा है टीवी लगा हुआ है सामने. बहुत अच्छा लगा. बहुत मतलब देश की याद आ रही है मान लीजिए.
Truly blessed and privileged to see him in person, that too in Paris. We are extremely proud of India, Modi and everyone.
हाँ जी, बहुत अच्छा लगा. वैसे मैं मोदी जी को तीसरी दफा मिला हूँ. जब भी फ्रांस आते हैं मैं हर दफा इनको मिलता हूँ. बहुत अच्छा लगता है जब अपने देश के प्रधानमंत्री यहाँ आते हैं और हमसे बातचीत करते हैं. हमने हाथ मिलाया, बहुत खुशी हुई उनसे बात.
As the Prime Minister goes ahead with the business end of the engagements, it is the voice of these people, both in India and abroad, that he aims to amplify and at the same time position the country as a shoulder. Today, he spoke about how India is a shoulder and springboard for the global south. This isn't a responsibility that India takes lightly. Ahead of playing the role of guest of honor for the Bastille Day celebrations, the Prime Minister gave an interview to a French publication highlighting how India has arrived at the world stage and is now gaining its rightful place. At the same time, he also reminded the West that our heritage and civilization till today guides our ethos and our spirit. Why is this visit so important? What is its significance? And why has the Prime Minister been given the rare honor of being the guest of honor at the Bastille Day Parade? Ambassador Kanwal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary of India, is joining us along with Major General Sanjay Meston, who's a defense expert. I want to first ask you, Ambassador Sibal, since you are speaking to us from Paris and you are going to be at the Louvre tomorrow as well, why is India important and why is Prime Minister Modi important to France right now?
You know, France has lost a lot of ground internationally and in Europe itself. And it is erstwhile colonies in Africa, for instance. It needs partners. And the most obvious partner in Asia is India. France, as you know, has a lot of territories in the Indian Ocean, in the Indo-Pacific area in general. And like other countries in Europe and, of course, the United States, they are facing what they see is the China challenge. And they see India as an obvious counter to China, geopolitically, economically, and generally speaking in terms of maritime security in the Pacific Ocean. But apart from that, I think what is more important is not how they see India today, is because right from the time that, for example, we had our nuclear tests and I was ambassador to France then, France supported us, backed us, did not join the US-led consensus to impose sanctions on us, said publicly that it will be business as usual with France, with India, and were the first to propose a strategic dialogue with India to understand India's reasons and compulsions to go nuclear. And that's how the strategic dialogue began. The other thing which is very important in overall French calculations is that unlike many other European countries, France is a truly military power in the sense that they have a genuine military industry. And they face competition from United States everywhere, including in India. And for a long time, They have felt that if they are to survive internationally, they must team up with another country, especially a country like India, join hands together, produce things together so that the French industry can be saved, because they need absolutely an export market. And India, which wants to strengthen its economic, its defense capacities, is an obvious partner. Other than that, as I said earlier, today, France is also facing similar challenges as we are facing on the issue of extremism, radicalism, and everything else. And we've seen what's happened in France. And for a long time, and I can tell you this on good authority, that the best cooperation we have got in the United Nations Security Council on the issues of terrorism and extremism is from France. They understand the problems we face. They also were amongst the first to support our permanent membership of the Security Council. And we've been working together, as I said, cooperatively in the Security Council on a variety of issues. Our economic partnership, unfortunately, lags behind at about $9 billion. Is totally insufficient.
You know, Ambassador
and
Sibal,
that is where the weakness is.
If I may just ask a follow-up question, because you spoke of the challenges that France faces as of today. The elephant in the room also is the recent riots that we saw on the streets of Paris. And in that light, how would you read the comments of the Prime Minister made to La Ecosse when he said in his interview, and I quote, "Global recognition today that India is a force for good in the world and indispensable for global unity, cohesion, peace and prosperity at a time of great turmoil and risks of fragmentation in the world." And then he goes on to speak about India's solidity because of its civilizational values.
I think there's more than one meaning in this message. One, of course, is that the world is fragmenting. You know, in the sense the Ukraine conflict has split the world. And China and Russia have got together, which is seen as a challenge by Europe and the United States. There is whole issue of democracies versus autocracies. Now, India is a bridge, because we have improved our ties enormously with the United States. We are improving our ties with Europe. We have very good relations with Russia, and we're keeping the channels of dialogue open with China despite our differences. We are part of Quad. We actually talk about the Indo-Pacific as a global good. We are willing to share our maritime responsibilities in the Indian Ocean. We are quite open about the challenge that we face from China. And at the same time, we are members of the SCO. We are members of BRICS. So we have a bridging role. And that's where the civilizational part comes in. We don't have a history of colonialism, of conquest, of going outside our borders, conquering people, exploiting people, slavery, racism, anything of this kind. So in that sense, if India becomes more powerful in the world, it has, and then India doesn't seek revenge like China does. It wants to undo 100 years or whatever it is. I mean, by that reckoning, we should undo 1,000 years or something. I mean, we are not in that mode of thinking at all.
In fact,
and therefore, our commitment is to peace, of dialogue, of live and let live, accept diversity, respect diversity. So all these things, Prime Minister is trying to convey through this message.
In fact, without naming China, he also specifically spoke of how India is the one country whose expansion is hailed and not feared by others. No prizes for guessing who he was referring to there. But General Meston, the fact that in an election year, the Prime Minister is going ahead with a shopping list for even more Rafales, something that had almost become a mantra of the opposition in the lead up to 2019. How do you view this? He is in France. He's saying, I will get more Rafales. I'll get it for the Navy this time around, despite this again being an election year.
I do agree that people will talk about it, that being an election year. But I think for Prime Minister Modi and for our country, national interests are supreme, paramount, and always. So that cannot be compromised, irrespective of which year the Prime Minister is in his so-called rule. So keeping in mind the national interest, I think it is a very, very good decision taken by the Prime Minister. And coming on to the Rafale, as it is, we have got 36 for the Indian Air Force, which are combat aircrafts, multi-role. And now we are also planning to acquire about 26 of them for the Indian Navy, the marine version. That is a Rafale M. So I think that's a very good aspect, and homogeneity will be achieved. And of course, there will be certain differences in the two aircraft, because landing on a INS Vikrant or aircraft carrier, it is not India is contemplating, and including we'll be contemplating some of the helicopters. So this engines with transfer of technology, etc. I think this will be very good for the Indian Air Force and for the Indian Navy. So we are so the election year should have no significance at all. It is a national interest which has to be kept in mind. And I think India's today diversity in terms of procuring military hardware from all the parts of the world and from the leading countries, and that is actually going to lead us to self-reliant Bharat or the Atmanirbhar Bharat concept.
Well, so it's the government's job to keep in mind the needs of our armed forces, and it's the opposition's job to keep looking for stories related to it in an election year. But more importantly, wherever the Prime Minister goes, one of the major issues that is picked is India's balancing act vis-a-vis the various countries, Russia, America, France, when it comes to our defense buys. Do you think India has now been able to strike that balance in its defense imports?
Yeah, absolutely. We have been able to do that. And let me be very clear. Today, India has resorted to diversification of procuring of military hardware, and that is our inherent security. Earlier, we were totally reliant on Russia, and therefore having diversification and procurement of equipment is a very, very good idea. And it augurs very well for our national security. And I think whatever deals we are doing, and the Atmanirbhar Bharat concept, very shortly, all these things will be manufactured within India. The co-jointly will be producing, designing, development, procurement, everything we'll be doing in-house. And that will be leading us to self-reliant Bharat. So I think overall, it is in India's national interest that whatever we are doing, and therefore diversification of procurement of equipment is to our national interest. And we cannot be today relying on any nation the way we were earlier relying on Russia. So I think that is very, very good steps being taken. And even the Scorpion deal, which we are going to have now, earlier we were having 6, now with the addition 3 submarines. See, it will cut down on the bureaucratic part because already 6 are being manufactured jointly, and now 3 more. So this will, and we are also on the verge of phasing out a lot of submarines. So this will enhance our inventory of submarines, and these are the best, I would say, submarines in the world. So
already being cleared in India, a final announcement will be made in just a few hours from now. For the time being, though, thank you very much, General Meston and Ambassador Sibal, for having joined us with your wisdom. Enjoy your dinner, Ambassador Sibal. Tomorrow we wonder whether it's going to be within viewing sight of the Mona Lisa. Thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for watching.